I also knew I'm also underestimating myself and have to figure out not to. But I turned it into like fuel for that like deep why, like the real why I needed to keep going. And here's the crazy thing about when we trust ourselves and we learn to hear ourselves and trust ourselves, which is like half of my book on how I figured out for me how to do that in a lot of cases and how other people can as well. But like when we believe and trust, whether it's in the universe, whether it's in a power greater than ourselves, for me, faith's a big deal. I believe stuff's divinely orchestrated in my life. And so many times these huge, painful rejections or setbacks or no's like suck in the time and they're devastating and they don't make sense and they're not fair. But like years later, right, we can look back on them and be like, oh my gosh, that was grace. Because had this dude said yes to me at that time, Sean, I was so desperate. I would have been like, take most of the company for like anything, just help us survive.
And, I want to dive into this idea of worthy, of how can we feel worthy if there's so many people out there right now. And I know part of it is this process you just brought us through, but what is it like for yourself? What does that word worthy mean? And how, and what's the, you know, what are some of the ways and some of the narratives people need to adopt in order to feel worthy?
Yeah, it is self-worth is the one thing that literally changes everything in every other area of your life, your relationships, your business, your goals, your dreams. Like we do not, rise to what we believe is possible for us in life. We will fall to what we believe we're worthy of. And in our relationships, in our friendships, in our careers, our ambitions, our goals, our dreams, like we don't soar to the level of those goals and dreams. We stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. And another way to put it that I talk a lot about in Worthy in the book is how in life we actually don't become what we want. We become what we believe we're worthy of. And there are a lot of people that maybe know what they want and they think that's enough. Or then they take action and they work so hard and build all the skills and the confidence to be really good at it. And then they may even go a step further and know their why for why they're doing what they're doing, which is so important. But all of that isn't enough often to get the thing you want unless you also learn to believe you're worthy of it. And a couple big things that I want to share, and I wrote Worthy. It's packed with 20 tools on how to build self-worth. And I go over all of the lies that lead to self-doubt and how do you ignite those truths that wake up worthiness? Because what I've seen happen and what I lived through, and I think so many entrepreneurs or passionate people or high achievers or perfectionists have gone through this, what I'm about to share. And a lot of people go through it their whole life and never understand why they still, no matter how much they achieve, no matter how much they accomplish, no matter how many of their big dreams have happened, they still don't feel enough. They still feel like something's missing. And one of the biggest epiphanies I've ever had in my life was after I thought I had accomplished all of it. The company sold for $1 billion. I got invited to lunch with Oprah, which I had dreamed of my whole life. I'd been on the Forbes list, like you shared. All these things were happening. I finally, I was very confident. And let me just pause for a minute, okay? Because this is so important. So many of us confuse self-confidence with self-worth, and they're very different. So many of us think what we need is more self-confidence, but what we actually need is self-worth. And really quickly, and this is huge for your business, for your life, for your fulfillment, for your joy. Self-confidence, while it's an internal trait, is based so much on the external. It's based on our own assessment of our skills and abilities, based on how we think we stack up and compare to others and measure up against others, our willingness to try and go for it, our ability to keep promises to ourselves, how much of the world's definition of success we have. And our confidence is actually fragile. It's volatile. It rises and falls all the time, right? There's a study that shows the boxer who wins the match is automatically 30% more confident. Our confidence fluctuates. Our self-worth is the deep internal knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, not as you achieve, not as what's happening all around you, exactly as you are, exactly as God made you. And if you think right now, and just to ask everyone this question, if you've ever had a big goal or dream and you thought, once I get that thing, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled, then I'll be enough. And for some people, it's their business hitting a certain threshold, or for other people, it's when I finally find that romantic partner, or when I get married or have kids, or get the 6-pack abs, or the dream car, whatever it is. And then you work so hard, whether it's for months or years or decades, and you finally get that thing. And then what happens? If you arrive at that thing and you're like, I thought this was going to solve all my problems and make me feel so happy and fulfilled and fully enough. And then we get there, and for a lot of us, we're happy for like a month or a week. And before we know it, we're back to feeling like something's missing. And if this has ever happened to you, it's because in the pursuit of those goals and dreams, we build a lot of confidence, we have a lot of growth. Those things are really important, but none of them build self-worth. And if we fundamentally do not believe we are enough as we are, which is a lie, by the way, but if we believe that, it does not matter how much we accomplish, how much of the world's definition of fame, success, money, contentment, whatever it is that we achieve, you still take you with you. And so many people have built all this self-confidence, and they feel like something's missing in their lives. So then they think something must be missing in my marriage. I'm feeling like it's not enough, or I'm going to quit this job. I'm feeling like it's not enough. I'm feeling unfulfilled. And what they don't realize is they don't have a net worth problem. They have a self-worth problem. Like when you fundamentally do not feel you are enough underneath it all, no amount of self-confidence, no amount of achievement, no amount of the world's definition of success can ever solve that. And the way I learned this was after my entire life's dream of like meeting Oprah. Since I was a little girl, I always dreamed of it. And I had sold my company and all the things were happening that you shared in the beginning. And I was so confident, Josh. And then I got invited to her house for lunch. She and I had a 3-hour lunch. At the very end of it, she gave me her cell phone number and said, you can call me anytime. Call me anytime. And the lunch was so good. And I left there and I did not call her for 4 years. And in that 4-year window, I told myself things like, I just need to think of the perfect thing to say. Or, everyone wants something from her. I'm going to prove I don't. All those things. And 4 years later, I realized I didn't call her because deep down inside, I didn't believe I was worthy of being her friend. And here's how low self-worth shows up in our life. When we really have low self-worth, we can have all the confidence and skills and abilities and look like we're crushing it to everyone on the outside. But if underneath it all, we don't feel we're enough and we have low self-worth, we will stay stuck. We'll never go for the thing. If we have some self-worth, we'll go for the things, but we'll sabotage them, which is what I did with meeting Oprah. I had all the confidence in the world, but underneath it all, I didn't have strong self-worth at the time. Even though to the world, it looked like I must just have it all. And if we have medium to high self-worth, but not super high, what that looks like is we'll go for the things, we'll even get the things, but we arrive at them not feeling fulfilled, perpetually unfulfilled, like something's missing, like we're not enough forever. And so building self-worth, and first of all, just being aware of it. I know right now there's going to be someone listening to us that's like, oh my goodness, this episode was for me. I thought I just needed more self-confidence. I needed to achieve more, when really that's not the thing. The thing is like, how do I learn truly to believe I'm enough exactly as I am? And the last thing I'll say is a lot of people worry, well, wait, if I believe I'm enough as I am I going to lose my ambition? I don't want to lose my ambition. And it's like, no, actually, when you believe you're enough as you are, like you become more ambitious because it doesn't really, you're fearless about what will happen if you fail or fall flat on your face or any of the other things, because you know it doesn't impact your self-worth, which is unwavering. So it's really the one thing that changes everything. And the very first step, which I hope and pray is happening for someone in this episode right now too, is just that, like, wow, the awareness of this. And then going, how do I take steps to build that self-worth? And so it's really why I wrote Worthy. There's a whole chapter. Well, there's over 20 tools in the book on how you do this. There's also a chapter for anyone who has a strong relationship and has strong faith in their life, on how believing God's word over your own self-doubt can be one of the quickest self-worth shortcuts. There's so many in there, but it's just, I'm so excited to talk. You can probably feel me like jumping through, like jumping out of my chair, because it's just the one thing that day I realized, wow, I don't feel worthy, was the day I became obsessed with studying self-worth. And I did call Oprah that day. We taught a course together this year. Like, so many things would have never happened because I came so close to doubting myself out of my own destiny.
You know, here's a big one for me is changing my relationship with rejection. Yes. And this is, you know, for every person listening, when you change and watching us too, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life.
Yeah.
You change your entire life. And I think, you know, fear of failure and rejection kills so many dreams. Mm-hmm. It keeps us stuck. Mm-hmm. And you know, this was huge for me. And so just to take everyone through a tactical, let's just go there. Let's do a tactical exercise right now, because this is something that outside of this episode, you're going to want to reapply it, spend more time on it, do the work on it. But just right now, as you're listening or watching us, answer this question to yourself super honestly, super honestly. When you fail at something or get rejected, what is the first thought that goes through your head? Very first thought. When you fail at something or get rejected, what's the first thought that goes through your head? For me, most of my whole life, it's, oh, yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough.
Yep.
I'm not enough.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah? Is that yours then?
Yes.
Same?
Yeah.
Right now, whatever your thought that just came to your mind, right? That your instant truth first response, that is your current definition of rejection, right? So for me, it's, there's proof I'm not enough, right? For a lot of people, it's something like, oh, yep, I'm not smart enough. I don't have what it takes. I'm stupid. I'm, you know, X, Y, or Z. I didn't go to the right school. I didn't come from the right family. I don't have what it takes. It's because of my weight. Oh, it's whatever it might be, right? We all have this definition of rejection. And I want you to just take note of yours right now, because this is really powerful. Don't skip over this. This one thing will change your life. If you take note of what is your current definition of rejection, for me, it's I'm not enough, right? And
can I tell you what mine's more specifically?
Yeah.
Just a little bit more refined?
Yeah. Because
I want to meet you in the middle on it. I think mine is like, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different, but like, I don't belong here. I don't know. I think there's probably some things where when I was a kid, my dad was like, we don't belong. But if I get into an environment, I don't belong here. If it's a big stage to speak on, or a room that I'm in, or people that are smarter than me, I don't belong here. I feel like I just physically, literally don't belong. Or even different things I've achieved, or levels, or like the first time I even walked into a country club I wanted to join. I don't belong here. They don't know the real me. Like, I don't belong here. And so I just want to give the phraseology from me. Maybe could be male, female. It could be just person to person that's different.
Yes.
Keep going. I interrupted you, but I just wanted to add that.
No, that's so good. I think that sheds a lot of light too because get granular with, you know, for everyone joining us with it right now, just get granular on what that is for you, you know, and by the way, I have another thing. Oh, I hope we have time. I want to dive deep on what you just said. I'm going to dive deep in that in a minute with a whole other tactic.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I don't belong here. That's huge, right? I don't belong here. I'm not enough. And at our core, we all want to feel like we're enough and will be loved, right? We all need love and belonging. We all need to be seen and heard and know that we matter. And at our core, that's a huge one.
Did you have the belonging thing? I wonder, because you didn't, you know, your birth mom gave you up real early, right? So like, did you, or did your the mother who raised you make you feel like you belonged immediately, or did you struggle with that at all?
I have struggled with that my whole life.
Have you?
Yeah. Not feeling like I fit in, not feeling I belong, feeling I'm different.
Yes. And maybe you are different, and maybe that's a good thing. It doesn't mean you don't belong, but I am different. You are different. I know you. By the way, those of you that are listening, you are different. That's why you're individually you.
Yes.
Right? That's the thing that makes you different is your special sauce.
Yes.
Not the thing that eliminates you from the room or the environment. It's what makes you special to add something to your family, add something to a company, add something to another human being. Is these different things about you? So anyhow, you're going down your treasure.
And to add to that, it's your superpower. If you are showing up in this world as your authentic self, by definition, you've never been done before. There's never been another you. And we think the thing that is different or quirky or awkward about us is what's wrong with us, but it's actually the thing that's right with us, right? and I don't want to get off on a huge tangent, but like, had I not embraced all the crap that was technically wrong with me, I could have never built $1 billion company. Like, rosacea is considered a flaw. It's considered something wrong with me. And it's like when I finally started to embrace it and share it and step into it, right? That's when other people felt seen. I was like, oh, me too. And I have skin challenges or this or that or whatever. And it's like, there's a whole chapter in Worthy about this idea of how you're not crazy, you're just first.
I love this.
You're not crazy, you're just first.
Yes.
And oh gosh, okay, I could talk about that for hours, but the lessons around this will change your life. It's why this book just came through me. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds. I'm not even doing this to sell books, but this book will change your life, and I'm so fired up about it. But to get real tactical, back there. So we just did our new definition, your current definition of rejection, which for me is like, proof again, I'm not enough. For Ed is, I don't belong here, right? And take note of what yours is that came to your mind right now. And step one of literally changing your entire life. Again, when I believe this through my core, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life, your business, your family, your relationships, your goals and dreams, ever stepping into your calling. So I want you to come up with a new definition of rejection that you are going to believe is true and remind yourself of every time it happens. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. So, for example, when I went through years of hundreds and hundreds of no's and rejections building It Cosmetics, and I would sit there, Ed, and I would Google all of my greatest heroes or people I thought I had so much respect for. And as I would read their stories, I'm like, oh, they've all gone through tons of rejections in their life, right? Every single one of them, right? And I came to this realization that the people who succeed the most are also the people who fail the most, because they're the people who try the most and keep going. And so I started telling myself this new definition of rejection, which is, ooh, it's a victory. It means I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it.
Yes.
And I started telling myself that every time I'd call a new retailer on the phone and they're like, oh, no, you're not the right fit for us or this or that or whatever. And it would hurt my feelings. It's not that I was immune to being hurt or whatever, but I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it, which means eventually I'm going to succeed. And I started seeing rejection in this weird way as a positive thing. Another definition that I use a lot is rejection is God's protection.
Yes.
Right? And I use this one a lot, and there are more in my own life, in my own head, right? This is something I tell myself over and over. There's more stories than I can count where I'm like, and by the way, one example is It Cosmetics. I mean, there was one investor midway through the journey that said, he passed on investing. And I thought we were down to almost bankrupt, right? We had under $1,000 in our account, which was the company and our personal, which meant we had a few weeks left before we went bankrupt. And everything was on the line. And I had this big meeting with a potential investor. And you know the story, Ed, but
it's so unbelievable. At the
end, he passed on investing. And I really was thinking he was going to be like my saving grace. And he said that he didn't think women would buy makeup from someone who looked like me with my body and my weight. And it was a whole thing. And
Wait a second. Hang on. Did you all just hear what she said? Okay, I want you to imagine you struggle with worthiness issues. You've been building this company forever. I just want to make sure, because I think what you're about to tell them, the belief system that you took from it, could change the world. So the first thing is, I want to go back.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not crazy. You're just first. I want everyone to just digest that. I want you to hear what this woman said. Who knows about this stuff? You are not crazy to be pursuing your dream.
Yeah.
You're just first.
Yep.
And you're probably first in your family, which is why they're the ones who think you're the craziest. You need to accept this.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a profound Jamie has this ability to say profound, deep things over and over again, hundreds of them, and she doesn't know. You are not crazy. You're just first. And your family's probably not going to get it. And even in your own company, maybe they're not going to get it. And so that's okay. The second thing is, this woman's struggling with worthiness all of her life. She's getting rejected like crazy, up and down. She's also struggled. One of her worthiness issues is she had rosacea. She's struggled with body issues all of her life, if we're going to get really real with Jamie. Okay. Yeah. She's had body issues. So imagine your biggest insecurity is probably that. It's physical. Okay. She's this gorgeous, beautiful woman, but she doesn't know it. And so her number one insecurity is probably her body issue, at least operating out in the real world. She goes into this meeting needing it. She's down to $1,000. Mm-hmm. He not only rejects her, he says to you, I'll let you say it again, he tells her the very reason I'm rejecting you is the very thing you think about yourself the most deeply. I want you to imagine this. So go ahead.
Yes. And we had gone through meeting after meeting. We went through the diligence phase. We were so close with this potential investor who was the head of a private equity company. And in the final meeting, it was in person. So he's about 3 feet from me. Paula, my husband, was on the other side. And he says, congratulations. You should be so proud of this product and what you've built, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing. And when I said, can you tell me why? It's usually feedback's a gift. And he got very quiet. And he said, you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And two things though, Ed, okay, because rejections and the pain that they cause can take us out. They can take us down. They can take us out. We can keep replaying them over and over and over in our heads. And by this point, I had so many rejections. This was just one that I thought was going to be my saving grace, that had he said yes. And I remember after I cried in my car, I remember telling myself rejection is God's protection. And I don't know how this is going to be God's protection. I don't see it now. It doesn't make sense to me now. I needed it to be a yes now, but I'm going to choose to believe that, because if I don't believe that, it's going to take me down. I'm not going to get back up and keep going and embracing more rejection and more rejection and more rejection and more rejection, right? And here's what ended up happening. I didn't hear from that guy for 6 years. The day that L'Oreal bought my company for $1.2 billion cash, because they are a public company, it was all over the press, right? Homepage of the Wall Street Journal, everywhere. That was the first time I heard from that potential. In 6 years, he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong.
Gosh.
And what I wanted to say to him, Ed, was, did you ever see Pretty Woman?
Yes. The character's Edward. Of course I saw Pretty Woman. I love that movie.
So when they wouldn't help her in the store and then she goes back later, what I wanted to say to him was, big mistake. Huge. I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why it was a huge mistake, but I kept it classy. I didn't say that. But here's my point in this. Had he invested, it would have been the most successful investment in his firm's history. But guess what? I was so desperate at the time, Ed. We probably would have given the majority of the company for almost no money, right? Because he didn't believe in me. When we sold to L'Oreal, I was the largest shareholder. So it's like, rejection is God's protection, and sometimes we don't see it when it happens. And so that's one.
Can we say something on that too?
Yeah.
Okay. So because her and I talk about these things all of the time. First of all, it's one of the most unbelievable stories ever, and I've heard it many times. A few weeks ago, I went to watch Jamie speak. I'm in the front row. Obviously, I'm rooting for my friend. But I got emotional again. I started crying again. And actually right now, if I'm not careful, I will, because I'm picturing this woman who all of her life has struggled with worthiness. And then to have someone hit you right where he's hit. But rejection is God's protection is one of the fundamental beliefs I've never heard said before, that if you adapt and adopt that belief in your life, it will change your life. Here's how much your relationship with rejection matters. My children, both, you get that stage, Max and Bella. Both of them are, hey, they're in college, you're getting ready for their careers. And Max's son said, maybe I'll follow in your footsteps, Dad, get into sales in the beginning. And I said, Max, the whole key, if you're going to go into business for yourself, is your ability to deal with rejection. It's the number one thing. Can you deal with rejection? And what's the story you tell yourself? Because it's not the stories of our life, the events of our life that define it. It's the meaning we attach to it. Our friend Errol McManus had a great post I saw today, by the way, Jamie, where he said, emotions only store in our body when they're attached to a story. So if there's no story, you've had a lot of emotions in your life that don't stick because you didn't attach a story to it. But when you attach a story to it, so that story you tell yourself. So you take it a step further. This is an all-time moment on podcast she's about to give you, just so you know, guys, okay? So not only is rejection God's protection, but what else did you eventually uncover that you realized about what God was doing on your behalf in that rejection in terms of hiding something from him? You guys listen. Your life's about to change in this next 1 minute right here, because if you can adapt this true belief system, it's not only a belief, it's a truth about your life. Your life's about to be very different, including mine the first time I heard it. So go for it.
Yeah. If you're someone that, you know, you are holding on to pain from a past relationship, a past failure, mistakes that you've made, someone who did you wrong, somebody, the job you didn't get, the thing that's not going your way, whatever it might be, the partner that screwed you over, whatever it is, right? This definition of rejection is probably the most common one I applied in my life right now, almost every single day, Ed, because sometimes, you know what? A friend doesn't invite you to coffee or include you in a group, and it hurts your feelings, right? Whatever it might be. This is now what I believe most commonly when rejection happens in my life. I imagine my creator, God, saying, oh, no, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I believe that, right? When things don't go my way right now, when someone, you know, doesn't give me the thing or want me there or include me in the room, whatever it might be, or doesn't get me for some reason. You know, have you ever tried to make someone just, you want to connect with them so bad, you want them to like you and they just don't? Whatever it might be, I believe this through my core, and it has changed my life, that I always now hear God saying to me, oh, no, you're not rejected. You weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny.
It's one of the all-time greatest things I've ever heard. And I wish every human being could hear it. And I hope you share this, everybody, this episode.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to know that. I want my daughter to know it so badly that when you walk in a room and a boy doesn't notice you like you like them to, or you don't get invited to something, or you get rejected in a sale down the road in your life, or if you're in a relationship and somebody leaves you, God had started to hide your value from them. And I'm telling you at 52, and Jamie can tell you as a much younger woman than I am, but having a lot of success in her life, it is so profoundly true that that's what God's doing. He is protecting you in that moment by either hiding your value or taking the perception of your value away when they once did. And sometimes in life, to get you out of a relationship or out of a company or out of a job you have and you've been fired. You've been fired. Maybe they used to value and now they don't. And God's removed that value from them to protect you. It's so beautifully true. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say it.
True. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier. Share this episode with anyone who needs to hear this.
Let's talk about you a little bit. I love that. I read your whole story, first person in your family to go to college, valedictorian. Obviously, you're an achiever. But your dream, your story came out of really a struggle of yours, right? Your whole dream, your whole business. And so many people, you know, that are listening to this are going through a struggle right now, and they think that struggle they have disqualifies them from becoming successful, when in fact, it may be the very pathway to their dream. So tell us about that with you, first of all.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it literally, an entire thing I thought was a big setback in my life, ended up being a setup, right, for one of like my biggest dreams coming true. So yeah, I mean, you know, ever since the time I was a little girl, I always watched Oprah, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be a journalist my whole career and tell other people's stories. Like right now, I literally just want to ask you questions, Ed, about you. Like it's what's in me. And so I just knew, that was my dream. And I started working as a journalist and a TV news anchor. And all of a sudden, in my 20s, I got this skin condition called rosacea, which is hereditary. So there's no cure for it. And it started, you know, would get these big bumps that were bright red and feel like sandpaper on my skin. And I'd be anchoring the news. I was working as a television news anchor, and I would be anchoring the news live, and I would hear in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to wipe it off. And I'd be live on television, And I knew there was nothing I could wipe off. And I saw a dermatologist and tried like every makeup product out there, nothing would work. And it was this kind of season where I was like, okay, am I going to lose my job? Our viewers going to change the channel? What do I do? Because nothing is solving this. And so, I went through a season of self-doubt for a while, and I started just trying to try everything out there, and no makeup product would work. And I had this moment where I realized two things. I was like, why? There's millions of makeup companies out there. Why is nothing working? And then I kind of had, and I know you have a daughter too, Ed, so you'll connect with this, but I had this aha moment where I'm like, wait a minute, like my whole life, I've seen these ads on television and in magazines. I've never seen anyone that has problematic skin the way I do. I've never seen I don't even know if those models were actually using that product. And I'm like, what if there's literally nothing out there that works? And if I can figure out how to create it, I can, solve my own problems, but I could probably also help a lot of other people out there who maybe have given up on makeup. And then I had this I think moment of grace where what hit me was way deeper, in the sense of I realized like, okay, if I can do this, I want to actually create a company where instead of these like unrealistic images of beauty that, from the time I was a little girl, I wanted to look like that, but they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. I was like, what if I, create this company and actually use real women, all ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones, and call them beautiful models and mean it. Like maybe I can shift culture around inclusivity and beauty for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every grown woman who still does. And so it became this big mission. But like anyone out there listening right now who's going through this, or maybe you've launched a business right now and you're like, why isn't this gaining traction? I poured everything I had into this dream. And, I wrote the business plan with my husband on our honeymoon flight to South Africa. We got back, quit our jobs, and went all in, used all of our savings. And I thought, oh, if we can just create something that literally works, like it's just going to sell.
Right.
Then I learned how hard it was to become an entrepreneur. And it was this moment where I learned probably one of the most important lessons in my whole journey, which is like how to get still, how to listen to your own inner knowing, and making the decision to trust it, right? And when I left television news, I thought that was my dream job. Like that was what I was going to do my whole career. But sometimes knowing when to let go of a dream isn't quitting. It's actually the victory. It's like that knowing of when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after one. So I listened to it to launch this dream. But then the first 3 years of running this business from my living room, couldn't afford to pay myself, and literally hundreds of rejections. I thought, Ed, I'm going to shift culture and beauty. I have this great idea. And so there's beauty stores like Sephora and Ulta and QVC and department stores. Every single one of them said no after no after no for 3 years. Literally would say things like, well, you're not the right fit. Your packaging isn't prestige enough, and women won't buy makeup from women they don't aspire to look like. And it was just no after no after no. For 3 years, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account. By the way, I'm sharing this because when you Google my story, and this is why I wrote this book, Ed, because if we don't share the real stuff, like that's when we feel alone in our own rejection and our own, lack of success or traction, right? And when you Google my story, all you ever see is like, oh, Denny's waitress sold her company for $1 billion cash. And it makes it seem like, oh, she just got lucky, or
cruised.
And, it was a journey that didn't make sense to keep going, except for every time I would check in with my gut. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to do this, but everyone keeps saying no. We got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, as I mentioned. And sometimes when there's no proof around you that your idea is right, and like your friends and family are starting to worry about you and they're starting to be like, are you sure you should have, started this? Are you getting any sales yet? And it was like that. And it was this 3-year journey of having to figure out how to turn down the volume on my own self-doubt and on rejection everywhere, and kind of like tune in, or turn up the volume rather, on that inner knowing that kept telling me you're supposed to do this. And that kind of was one of the things that made all the difference.
I wrote a whole chapter once called The Power of You Can't, because you can't, or rejection can be cumulative, where you go, hey, I had 100 no's. I don't have a good brand here. Let me go back to what I was doing. Simultaneously, though, that with a little proof, you realize the more no's is just the build to the yes. Like, it's either your fuel or your anchor, right? And,
yes.
and I love how you're sharing that. And I want everybody to really think through that. You can take rejection. I mean, the worst part is sometimes we take advice about dating or our relationship from our single friend, or money advice from our broke friend, and we let it sink in. And Jamie, you said it so right. Like, we go back to them 5 or 10 times trying to resell them, while simultaneously we're just building more self-doubt for ourselves, because each time you're not breaking through. It doesn't mean your idea is not great. It means they're not qualified, or they don't have the vision, or they tried something and failed. And one more thing I want to share, and that I had a dear friend who has passed. He was born with a rare disease. They told his parents he had a couple of weeks to live, and he lived till 42. And had a freak accident in his wheelchair. It's the only reason he's not with us. His name is Sean Stevenson. He was 3 foot tall. He broke 280 bones in his body, and was the most confident, dynamic, amazing man you'd ever meet. Like, just when he walked in a room, as he said, you guys aren't as lucky as me. When I walk in a room, you might have a couple people look. He goes, I get everybody looking at me. Right? Like,
I love
that's
it.
the kind of man he was, right?
Yeah.
He's like, so don't be jealous. They're all going to look at me. Don't be jealous. And he'd walk in a room and go, hey, everybody. Hi, I know, right? That's what kind of guy he was. But he was also a psychologist, and obsessed on helping relieve people of suffering. And I just want to share one thing that came to mind when you were talking. He said, so many times in life, we don't realize when we have a dream, a goal, a desire, a passion, if the people around us that we spend too much time with don't support us, we feel bad for burning our light so bright. So what we do is we turn it down. I just, when he said that, I'm like, wow. He said, do not turn your light down. Burn so bright that eventually they'll come to the light. And if they don't, that's okay. They have their own journey. And it just made me think of that. Like, don't dare turn down your glow for someone else.
Yeah. And so many times people feel like they need to listen because it's their partner, or their family, or their close friends. They've been friends for 20 years. And so many people, they love, like, and here's the thing, a lot of people around you, they love you. They want the best for you. They're giving you their best advice that they don't believe in your dream. They're giving, like, they care about you. They have good hearts, but like, they only see things through their own lens of experience and limitations, and they're doing the best they can. And it's hard sometimes to go, okay, I need to love all of them from a new boundary, a new distance. And I'm going to talk with them about The Bachelor tonight, or I'm going to talk about the weather, or what we're going to cook for dinner Friday. But like, I'm going to talk to these other people. I'm going to bring new people in my circle that when I want to dream big, and I want to like get the right kind of feedback, even when it's critical, the right kind of feedback, because people really get it, that, that's when you turn the volume up on those people. And then that's when you still love all the people that you love, but like, exactly, because energy is contagious, right? So exactly what you just said, the more you have that around you, not only the more you dim your light, but I feel like subconsciously as human beings, we start to dim our own light also to have love and acceptance around us and to match everyone else's energy, and we lower our vibration. It's contagious. So just being mindful of that is so powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of your life, if we get the chance to sit down with our maker, whoever you believe your maker is, would you want to say, thank you for putting me on this earth. Thank you for making me a human. I lived a good life. I was going to do more, but my husband, my friend, my mom, my sister, my friend, they thought I was kind of crazy with my dreams, and I didn't want to make them feel bad. So, I lived a good life, and I had some pretty cool accomplishments. Like, I don't think we want that. I think that would be a moment as it was coming out of your mouth. You'd be like, could I go do a do-over, please? Give me one more shot. I want to go. Like, I think more than anything, we would love to be able to say, hey, my friends weren't as crazy and didn't see the potential I had in me. And that was okay for them, but I went for it anyway. I think we'd be okay, even more so than a good life, to say my life was kind of a roller coaster, but I went for it. I found my dreams. I overcame the imposter syndrome. I overcame rejection. I went for it. And I don't think you can end that story if you get up, you say, if you fail once, what do you do? Try again. If you fail another 100 times, what do? You try 100 different other ways to overcome it. I don't think you can have that conversation without saying, and finally I had the breakthrough and I got to lean into this full potential and I got to live a more fulfilled life. And I feel like I squeezed all the juice out of life. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think of those crazy things in my life when I'm going to let someone's opinion stop me or a no stop me. I'm like, what am I going to say to God when I'm sitting next to him, that I wasted this life he gave me? Hell no.
How did you look at your rejections as a good thing?
I love this question because honestly, I feel like people don't share this enough.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now we see social media, we see everyone's highlight reel, we see all the outcomes. It's really why I wrote this book, to be honest, because like if you Google my name, you see like, oh, Denny's waitress to $1 billion entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I get so many DMs, especially from women, Lewis, so many DMs from people saying like, oh, did you get lucky? Or was that easy? Or did you have connections? And it's like, oh, wow. If we don't share the rejections and like the real story and the real journey, then I feel like people feel like they're alone in their own rejection and their own pain and all that. So yeah, it was, my journey has been filled with hundreds of no's, tons of rejection. And I feel like figuring out how to not take it personal has been huge on the business side of things. It's always hurt, to be honest. It's always hurt. But also, I believe, and no matter if someone believes in God or the universe or whatever, when I look back at everything I've gone through, especially this last 10-year window, there's a famous saying, rejection's God's protection. You could say rejections is the universe's protection, right? Whatever applies to each person listening, but like, I believe it. And so
that person shouldn't have said yes to you. It wouldn't have been the right fit for you.
Wouldn't have been the right fit.
Or the right timing, or whatever.
And what's hard, and here's the hardest thing, is so many people actually like never step out of their comfort zone because they're so afraid of rejection, because it freaking hurts. It sucks when it happens, right? And sometimes it doesn't make sense and it doesn't feel fair. And I remember, one rejection out of hundreds in my journey, because I thought I was going to be a news anchor and a talk show host my whole career. I love other people's stories. Yes. Like I just want to interview you right now. It's like since the time I was a little girl, it's all I wanted to do. And I was working in my dream job as a news anchor, and I started getting this skin condition called rosacea, which is bright red, and there's like bumps and all kinds of stuff. And I thought I was going through this big setback in my career, and I would be anchoring the live news, and I'd hear from the producer in my ear, like, there's something on your face, and I'd be live, and they were like, you need to wipe it off, and I knew.
Then it'd probably get worse.
Yeah, because the stress.
Flaring up more, you're like, ah.
I'm like, and I knew there wasn't anything I could wipe off, and I started going through this season of self-doubt where I started thinking, okay, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose viewers? Is my boyfriend still going to think I'm cute? Like all those thoughts that we tell ourselves. And I started thinking I was in this like big setback, but what it was really was a setup for what I was supposed to do. Right. And I think so often our setbacks are setups. It's just hard to see it at the time. And I started, trying every makeup out there, from the most expensive to the least, to everything. I couldn't find anything that works. And I made this decision to literally leave my dream job. Like, I think sometimes knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after one. And I feel like so many people are always like, just don't give up, just don't quit. But I actually think that doesn't always apply. I think that like the victory is knowing when to hear yourself and trust yourself and let go of a dream or step into one. But what I didn't know is stepping into that dream would be faced with 3 years of constant rejection. So from the moment I quit my job and my husband and I wrote our business plan on our honeymoon flight to South Africa, got back, like dove all in, put everything we had into a product. And once we finally had a product that worked for me, I just thought like, oh, it's going to sell. It's just going to do well, right? And it was literally 3 years of every single beauty retailer, like all the ones I loved and the ones I thought, oh my gosh, like I put them on a pedestal and I thought, oh, they're going to love this because it works, and so I would send it to Sephora and Ulta and QVC, all the places, and they all said, like every one of them said no.
For 3 years.
For 3 years. We got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was our company and personal combined. Literally, it was no after no. And I mean, one no that stands out, just to share this, because anyone listening, part of, your greatness community, like dealing with rejection, dealing with setbacks, it's hard when you check in with your gut. You feel like you're supposed to be going after this dream or creating something or launching the podcast or creating the product or whatever. It's hard when you feel like it's the right thing, but then there's no proof of success around you.
No one's buying into it.
No one's buying into it. And then your own self-doubt starts taking over, right? And when you have experts telling you they don't believe in what you're doing, that's hard. And I remember one moment in particular when we got interest from a private equity firm. And I was so excited because we had so many no's. And I thought, okay, if they invest in us, and this was a big private equity firm, they invest in a lot of consumer product companies that we see at the grocery store,
Sure.
like household names, right? And they invest in a lot of them pre-revenue, and then they become big companies. And I'm like, oh, if they invest in us, A, I won't go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their leverage to get us into these stores that are telling us no, they don't want our product. And so we started the meeting process with the investors and went through the diligence phase and presented our product pipeline and showed our budgets. And I'll never forget the final meeting. And my husband, Paulo, who he was there. And then the head investor was 3 feet from me. And I thought it was going to be a yes. I was so excited. And he literally was like, thank you. We're really, we want to congratulate you on your product. We think that it's awesome. We want to wish you the best, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why, right? Because feedback's usually a gift, not always. And I was like, can you tell me why? And he looked at me, and he's literally 3 feet from me, and he says, do you really want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight, right? And so this was a moment. When he said that, I don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. It was this moment where I was looking at him, right? And it was almost like watching his lips move in slow motion. And I remember 2 big things from this. I remember my whole body flooded with a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt.
And God doubt, you say?
Yeah, God, everything. But it felt like I was staring my fear straight in the eye. It was almost like it wasn't even about him in this moment. And I knew that 2 things. I remember that, and I remember this moment in my gut that told me, even though I was in pain at the time and it hurt, and this was a big rejection, I also felt this really strong moment of feeling like he's wrong, a knowing, a deep knowing. But I also knew that if I was ever going to prove that, I would also have to truly believe it. You know what I mean? And it was tough. I went to my car and cried, and didn't know what we were going to do. But one thing and I did a lot of things wrong in my journey, and I share those in the book, but one thing that I did right was through all the rejections, I actually never took them personal. And with him, I felt no anger toward him. And I had this big moment. So 2 big things happened. And then I want to tell you the full circle. The whole rejection's God's protection and rejection's the universe's protection. I have to tell you what happened. This is for anyone listening going through a setback or rejection right now, because I have hundreds of stories like this. Now, after building this company and hiring over 1,000 employees and all the stuff that we've done on the way. Okay, so so two things. One is when I was creating this company, right? And you know, you hear about you've had people on your show talking about finding your why and finding your mission and all that kind of thing, and everyone knows about that, or a lot of people have read about it. And I think knowing your why is important for any goal or any dream. But two things happened when I created the brand, and I was like, why can't I find any product that works? Like, I don't understand this. This is when I was working as a news anchor. I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, my whole life, even when I was a little girl growing up, all I ever saw was TV ads or magazine ads. I loved them. Like, I loved them, and I always saw the models, and I always like aspired to look that way. But they all always had flawless skin. I never saw anybody that had rosacea or any type of challenges. And I realized two things, that I always had aspired to look like them, but they also always made me feel not enough, because
you could never look like them.
Yeah, what was called beautiful, I didn't see myself in, right? And so I had this whole idea, which is part of why all the retailers were saying no in the early years. I had this idea to not just create products that work, but let me show models, all different people, every age, skin tone, skin challenge, gender identity, skin problems, size. Like, let me just show real people and prove this product works. Like, let me go on QVC and prove it live. Let me show my own rosacea. And I just thought, if people can see people that look like them, this just makes sense to me. But all the experts said it didn't. So back to me standing there with this investor saying, I don't think people will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. After I went in my car and cried, rejection always still hurts. I also just remember feeling like, wow, he's passing on investing in my business. He's making a business decision because of exactly why I'm starting this company. Like, he's just as much, I don't want to call it a victim, but just as much impacted by the definition of beauty that's out there. And he's literally passing on investing in my company because of it. And so it drove my deep why for like why I was building this company. And I took that rejection as fuel for like, oh, this has got to change, right? And for me, it was like, let me build a company where we show all types of beauty, where it wasn't even just about selling product. It wasn't about solving my own problems. And even though I want to help millions of women and all that, the real why was like, can I shift culture and beauty for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every grown person who still does. And so like that drive fueled it. And not being afraid of rejection is so huge. And it's really huge for women because it prevents a lot of people from even trying. And it hurts. It always sucks. It never feels fun. But I got rejected so many times on this journey. And to finish this thought about how rejection's God's protection. So the day this dude tells me this, right? Fast forward 6 years. And the day that L'Oreal bought our business for $1.2 billion cash, it was all over. They had to announce it because they're a public company. So it was on the Wall Street Journal homepage. It was everywhere. And I got an email from him.
You?
He emailed me.
Wow, what did he say?
I got an email. He said, congratulations. I'm so, so happy for you. I was wrong. And
have you stayed in touch in those 6 years?
Not with him. With everyone else that rejected me, though, I did often. Because I was always like, it's going to be a yes. It's going to be a yes. With him, here's and this was 6 years, right, until this moment happened. But what I realized that day is, when we talk about like rejection is protection, I was so desperate in those moments when I wanted him to invest that we probably would have sold him the majority of the company for like no money, because he didn't believe in us. Two things: we found out we would have been his most successful investment in his firm's history, but then also like, by the time, because he didn't believe in us, and also we got a lot more rejection on the way, by the time that L'Oreal acquired our company, we were still the largest shareholders. So it was like, okay. So I was so glad he didn't believe in me then. But when rejection happens, it's not easy to see it in that moment. It always does hurt, but I always believe.
I want to talk about when you said, I found comfort in knowledge that being underestimated can be a superpower. It sounds really great, right? Like we both have had experiences where we can now look back and say, oh, you just got to go, you got to push, you just got to believe it. What do you tell, again, that mom that may be home folding the laundry, or that guy that's, just got a divorce and is feeling on the down and out? How would you tell them to believe it? Like, even though someone's told you no, or even though you're in that struggle, like, believe it.
Right. So I think the very first thing is knowing and believing that, like, every one of us has this person I believe we're all born to be. And I think most people never actually become that person. I think most people end up, for a lot of reasons, staying in their comfort zone, almost letting it chip away at their soul, because I think that's what happens when we stay in our comfort zone, and also like talking themselves out of their own truth, right? And I think the very first thing in order to believe that people need to do is make the decision they want to, right? That's the most important, because a lot of people will never make the decision that they want to learn how to believe in themselves, that they want to learn how to believe it's possible to step into all of who they're born to be. And I think that, there's a lot of lessons I've learned that now I really share as tips in the book on how to do this, because I think we're all on a journey. Once we decide, you're like, yeah, I want to, become the person I was born to be step into all of who I am, then there's a lot of, it's a journey, a lot of things we need to do. So, one quick story, and then some tips on what to do for that is, on Underestimated is, for me, I feel like I've always been underestimated for whatever reason. And I think sometimes when we're kind to other people, we instantly are underestimated. I think sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think that, one moment, for example, and I think you can use people's underestimation as fuel. And I think sometimes it becomes 360, and it really works as grace in your own journey. And some people might say, a lot of people say, oh, well, things happen for a reason, or the universe is always right, or God always knows what he's doing. And there's a lot of, if you're someone that's always underestimated, I don't think it's an accident. I think that it's actually supposed to be part of who you are on your own journey, and the things that you become strong enough to overcome and smart enough to overcome, right? And one example is, this was before our launch on QVC. We're a few years into this company. I'd started in my living room, thought it was going to be, great. And meanwhile, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was our personal and our business bank account. I don't know, Sean, if you've ever, I would go to the ATM if I needed $20 and I'd hit no receipt, right? I couldn't stomach seeing the receipt. And,
yes. Yes.
Right. And we finally got this call that I thought was life-changing from a potential investor, private equity company. And they loved our product. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sean, this is going to be huge, because this particular private equity company had created, or I should say invested in and built a lot of the products we buy at the grocery store. And they turned in a lot of consumer products from unknown into big household names, huge companies. I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, A, we're not going to go bankrupt. B, what if they can use their leverage to get us into all these retail stores that are saying no? I was so excited. And so we started doing meetings with them, and meeting after meeting, we started the diligence phase, which is when we show them all of our projections and the future products we want to launch and all that stuff. And I remember the final meeting, and I thought this is going to be life-changing. My husband and I flew up to this meeting, and we were standing 3 feet from the head guy. And he said to me, we really love your product. And we want to thank you for everything, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I said, and I was so used to hearing no at that point, right? So I was like, okay. But can you share why? And because feedback's usually a gift. And
right.
And he was literally 3 feet from me, and he says, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And then he literally looked at me and he said, I just don't think women are going to buy makeup from someone who looks like you, you know, with your body and your weight. And I remember as he was saying this to me, I remember like I felt my whole body flood with like a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt. And it was so weird because I didn't get mad or even hurt in that moment. I felt this crazy feeling of like my own fear staring back at me, first of all, as he was talking. And I felt this deep feeling, this deep knowing, I should call it, that he's wrong. But I also knew if I was ever going to prove that, I would need to figure out how to believe it for myself, right? Because that's literally half of it. And I thanked him for his time, for his honest advice. And here's what happened in that moment. And by the way, I think this is the defining thing for so many people out there dealing with rejections and how to handle them. Our human nature, our humanness wants to go to a victim mentality, anger, all those things like, oh, F him, what a jerk, like all those things, right? But it was like, of all the things I did wrong, this is one of the things I did right, where I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me. He was passing on investing in our company because of my weight. I was like, wow, he is as much of a byproduct of the beauty industry his whole life as I am. Right? It's like, wow, he's making business decisions because in his whole life, he's just seen one type of beauty on TV or in magazines, and he doesn't believe any other way will make him money. And I realized this why is so deep. It's so powerful. Like, not just, oh, let me create products that work. It's like, and by the way, oh my gosh, I'll go off on this for an hour, but so many people, because I've seen so many people fail, right, in their businesses. And I feel like it's because they create their mission, their why, and it just sounds good. Like in this case, my why could have been like, oh, I want to solve my own skin problems and I want to help other women and other people and other men and other people that are the same. And that would be a great why. And it would sound really good. But it wouldn't have been deep enough to keep me going in all those hard years. And a lot of people have these whys that sound great, like, oh, I want to pay for my kid's school one day, or I want to buy a house. And like, those are great. And if you tell someone else that why, they'll think you're amazing. But literally, it's not deep enough to the core of pain inside of you that's going to keep you going during all the hard times that face most of us, right? So like in that moment, he was obviously completely underestimating me. I also knew I'm also underestimating myself and have to figure out not to, but I turned it into like fuel for that like deep why, like the real why I needed to keep going. And here's the crazy thing about when we trust ourselves and we learn to hear ourselves and trust ourselves, which is like half of my book on how I figured out for me how to do that in a lot of cases and how other people can as well. But like when we believe and trust, whether it's in the universe, whether it's in a power greater than ourselves, for me, faith's a big deal. I believe stuff's divinely orchestrated in my life. And so many times these huge, painful rejections or setbacks or no's like suck in the time and they're devastating and they don't make sense and they're not fair. But like years later, right, we can look back on them and be like, oh my gosh, that was grace. Because had this dude said yes to me at that time, Sean, I was so desperate. I would have been like, take most of the company for like anything, just help us survive. And it's like, instead, because of so many people rejected me, I couldn't even give my company away for a little bit of money for so many years. And then by the time, fast forward many years, and we did bring on some investors toward the end, but fast forward to 2016, when L'Oreal bought our company, I was still the largest shareholder. And that changed my life, right? And had he said yes to me back then, like, who knows what I'd end up owning. And the day, and by the way, we met with L'Oreal for 3 years. I was really hoping to partner with them because I was like, oh, they could take our vision and scale it globally really quickly. But they said no for 3 years. And when it eventually was a yes, L'Oreal announced that it was their largest acquisition in US history, and it was this all cash deal and this big thing. And I got an email from that guy, from that investor, the day of the deal, because it went on the Wall Street Journal online, the homepage and all this stuff. And he said, congratulations on your deal. I was wrong. And also I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his company's history had he said yes, right? But he underestimated me.
You talk about your why running deep, right? And it sounds good. But I think you prove that when it wasn't just about you. I mean, when he was saying no, like not everyone looks like the person on the cover of a magazine or a beauty magazine. Not everyone looks like that. So and I would be bold enough to say that I believe that that's maybe 10% of the population. So you're excluding 90% of the population because of what you think beauty is, but not really going to the person that maybe they have beauty inside of them and this is what's going to bring them out. And so, I just really want to commend you on not just having something that sounded good, but it made you like help other people feel good. And you said something earlier about what you were born to be. And I know that this subject it was very emotional in the book. And, as a person that never met their biological father before, you also transcended finding out a secret that would devastate most. And you, again, had to believe it and believe in yourself. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Can you just share just a little bit of that?
Thank you. Yeah. And really fast, one thing you asked me earlier, I just realized I forgot to, you said for people in that moment when they're shaking and how do I get through this? What did you do? What was your mindset? It's exactly what you just said. Like I forgot to answer you. So just to share it really quick in case it's of value. In that moment, when I'm shaking on live TV and I feel like everything's on the line, exactly what you just said, Sean, I knew it can't be about me or I'm effed. I'm done. Because literally, if you want the real truth, I was wearing double Spanx at the time. I'm like, my dress feels tight. Is my Spanx absorbing all my sweat dripping down because I'm freaking out? That's what's going on in my head, right? And if I stay, there's that famous saying, if you stay in your head, you're dead, right? I knew this is not about me or I'm going to fail. And it was like in that moment, that's when you dig deep and you call on your why. It's like, oh, this is like for every person out there watching who deserves to see who deserves to see me calling real people beautiful and meaning it. Like that's what it was about. And so in that moment, the only way I got through it and didn't fail was like, I had to make it not about me. It had to be about something so much bigger than me. It was just too much pressure to handle. I think I couldn't have made it through, let alone connected in an authentic way where people are going to keep their channel on me, not turn it off, and consider buying the product, right? And that's the thing and that's the other thing is your mission has to be so authentic, because had I shown up with this why that was great, but not like the deep core, I don't think people would have connected the same way. And anyways, so I go deep in the book on some personal stuff. I would say 95% of this book I've never shared are stories and lessons I've never shared before.
I love how you talk about that, and you talk about how rejection is protection. You said that, and you have a very personal story that's behind that, right?
Yes, I think this is so true. And I think that in particular for women, it's so important that we start embracing rejection. I think self-doubt kills more dreams than almost anything out there. And I think so many people probably listening to us, like at this moment, so many people know they have a dream on their heart, or they know they have something more to give or offer the world or create, or an idea they want to launch or something they want to do, but they end up letting self-doubt take over because they're scared of failure or of rejection. And, my hope and prayer, and a big part of why I wrote Believe It, is I hope to shift perspective around rejection. I hope, even though it's painful, even though it's not fun, I think when we can really embrace it and not take it personal and see it as part of our journey, because what I have learned, and I do believe to be true, is rejection is God's protection. Some people say rejection is the universe's protection. And, I have so many stories of rejection in my book, but one that stands out in particular, I think you might be referencing is, we were a couple years into building It Cosmetics. We got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was my personal and business bank account. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive in business. And I had been just getting hundreds of rejections from all the stores. Well, we finally got this inbound phone call from a potential investor. And I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, because this was a big private equity company who had invested in all these products you and I buy at the grocery store. They made them household names. And I thought, wow. And they loved our product at Cosmetics. So I thought, if they invest in us, A, I'm not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they can use their leverage to try and get us yeses from all of these retailer stores that keep telling me no. So I thought this was going to be life-changing. And we started doing meetings with the potential investor and their whole teams. And it got down to the final meeting. And I thought it was going to change my life. I was so excited. And I'll never forget, I flew in for this final meeting. My husband was there as well. And the head guy was about 3 feet from me in person. And his whole teams were there. And they said to me, congratulations, we love your product. You should be so proud of everything you're doing with It Cosmetics. But it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? This is a couple years of hundreds of no's. So I said, well, can you tell me why? Can you share with me why? Because feedback is a gift. Usually. And he paused for a long time and he said, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he's standing about 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember in that moment, a couple of things, right? I got, first of all, a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt. I felt it flood my body all at once. So I wasn't even mad at him. I felt when he was saying these words to me, it almost felt like I was staring my own fears straight in the eye and just trying to keep my faith bigger than them. But I'll never forget, there was this moment, Angie, where when he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling deep down in my gut, just a strong feeling of intuition that said he's wrong. He's wrong. And I felt it. And, listen, after that rejection, I went and cried. I cried in my car, all those things. But here's the thing is so many times, all of us, no matter who we are, somebody looks us in the eye and in one way or another says to us, you're not enough, or you're not the right fit, or change who you are, to get my love or to fit in or to get in my stores or to get my investment, whatever it is. And those are the moments that change our lives, because we have those decisions to make of, do I trust my gut and stick with my authentic mission, or continue showing up authentically as who I am? Or do I try to change who I am for someone else's approval? And so after that investor said those words that were really hurtful to me, although I appreciate his honesty from his perspective, 6 years later, I hadn't heard from him. 6 years later, when we were acquired by L'Oreal, it was the largest acquisition in their history. And because of that, and L'Oreal is a public company, it was on the homepages everywhere. So the Wall Street Journal homepage was like, It Cosmetics sold for $1.2 billion cash, and this whole thing. 6 years later, when that happened, I heard from that investor. I heard from him, and it was the first time in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And two things I learned, had he invested, it would have been the most successful investment in this firm's history. But also, rejection is God's protection, right? Rejection is the universe's protection. What's amazing is, had he believed in me 6 years earlier, right, instead of rejecting me, I had no money. I was so desperate at the time, I probably would have given him the majority of the company for almost no money, right? But because he rejected me, he didn't believe in me. By the time we did sell the company, I was the largest shareholder. And so it was rejection is protection, even when it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah, $1.2 billion and still the CEO. I mean, come on. That is such an amazing story.
What would you say to founders that perhaps don't want to be the face of the brand, or perhaps are worried around kind of, even if their face is too strong, they might not be able to sell that company, and then you had an incredible exit. Like what's your take there?
By the way, no one has ever asked me that question. And that is such a brilliant question because it is so important. I knew exactly what you're saying, Nathan, that like if we were too heavily key person dependent, right, we would never be able to be acquired or really truly have something that was sellable or even scalable in a lot of ways. And so two things. The first part of that question, I think it's perfectly fine if you're a founder and you want nothing to do with being the face of the brand. I think it's perfectly fine to find someone who can be, if you need that as part of your company. And how you do that. So I did that in my own company, and I did it very differently actually than most people do. So I'll share that piece in a moment. If you're like a founder that's like, how do I find someone who's the perfect face for the brand? But I do think you can do it that way. Find someone else and have it be fully authentic and have it be really powerful. You can find more than one person also. I knew early on, and this is a big blind spot for so many founders, which I'm fired up that you asked that question and realizing no one's ever asked that question. This is such a big blind spot for founders because they don't realize their business is them, which is not a business. That's, you know what I mean? But yet they're burnt out. A lot of times when your business is all you're burnt out, all of the things, right? And so, and when you're having great success, especially, success masks a whole lot of problems and a whole lot of inefficiencies, right? And key person dependency is one of those. And so early on, there were a couple things that we did, and one of them was realize really quickly, like, because after the moment we just talked about, when we had the big sellout of everything and all the stuff, that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year, and eventually 250 live shows a year. There's only 365 days a year. That's a whole lot of time. And what was tricky was, and I was so burnt out, by the way, doing 100-hour weeks, plus like trying to do everything else, right? So we were scaling, and even though we were hiring rapidly, we were trying to, preserve our culture. As we were hiring, I was still trying to myself sign off on every element of copy, write every story, every product name, create, all the stuff, like a billion moving parts, not to mention all the other departments we were building out. So that's all going on. I was burnt out for a number of years, yet what was happening was QVC, who was our biggest channel for a long time, they have a history of where when the founder steps off there and someone else goes on, that other person doesn't hit numbers. And all of a sudden the brand starts going down. So they did not want me to have anyone else go on. So there was this big pressure for a long time where we were dependent on them, right? So we had a business for a few years that was key person dependent on me going on air all the time, but then it was key channel dependent on QVC. So it was a double negative in terms of a healthy business. And so the good thing is, we identified that really early, and after, and it wasn't for lack of trying, everyone else just said no forever, but eventually all of our success on QVC, other channels started wanting us, all of the department stores, all the beauty retailers. I did an infomercial that aired in the United States, and it was on while I was sleeping. So I was like, okay, we're selling product while I'm sleeping. This is great. So we had all these moving parts, but we still had the problem that it was key person dependent on me. So what I did, which was, I think, very different than what most people would do, because I've seen a lot of other founders in like especially on QVC, they'll hire someone to take over their role, but they'll hire someone that is like a master at sales, or they poach them from another company because they're a superstar there, or whatever it might be. With that idea that you cannot fake authenticity and that customers are smart, I did it totally different. I took 3 people inside my organization who their lives were authentically changed by the product, like full evangelists, but they'll tell their neighbor at the coffee shop, but their lives were authentically changed by the product. I took 3 people internally and I taught those people who had the authenticity piece, I taught them the TV and the sales piece. And it took a number of years. They started traveling to all my shows. We were on in Canada as well on the shopping channel there, and they would go to my US shows. And for 3 years, they shadowed me at every show as I taught them all of it, started putting them on air in Canada, where the sales goals were lower. Like, you wouldn't get kicked off right away. If you missed in the US, you get kicked off right away. And then eventually those 3 women took over the entire QVC business for me. And I had my head of marketing doing press for the brand instead of me for a while. And basically I did everything I could. This is the big takeaway for every founder. This intuitively feels scary, but when you can figure out how to replace yourself in every part of what you do the best you can, that's the healthiest your business will be. That's the most sellable your business will be. And you have to take your ego out of it. A lot of people are like, I am not replaceable, which is true for every founder. You really can't fully replace you. But the more you can show that there is no key person dependency, because here's the thing, Nathan, we met with L'Oreal for 3 years and they said no. We met with other people and they thought our business was too key person dependent. A lot of times that's the reason you won't ever be able to get past, to get to the exit. And so we were able to solve that and able to show that the best we could, I had become as irrelevant as possible to the business, and that we had something that was scalable.
The first thing I'll say about authenticity, because so many of us are scared to be who we really are, right? Because we fear rejection or isolation or not being included or judgment or all those things. And first of all, just one little tip, and you'll know this so probably way more than I do, Jim. But one thing that's always helped me is like so many studies out there talk about how it's impossible to have a real true connection with another human being if you show up as your representative, if you don't show up as your full authentic self, for better or worse, right? The good parts, the bad parts, the quirky parts, whatever. And whether the relationships you want to have are with your partner or your customers or your community on social media, you actually cannot have a fully authentic relationship if you're not showing up as your full authentic self, for better or worse. And so if right now you're listening and you're like, oh, well, I'm showing up kind of as the person I think I need to be, or I'm getting distracted by other people on social media because they're having great success, or their podcast is doing well, or their business, my competitors' businesses are having success by doing this, so I'm going to do that. You are robbing yourself of that actual authentic connection with your own customers, your own community, or your own friends, or your own family. That literally is the only way, from my experience, to build anything that lasts, anything that matters. Like in my journey of now doing over 1,000 live TV shows on QVC, right? I've met thousands of entrepreneurs in the green room, and most of them only last one show, maybe 2, and they're gone. And I would like, over the years, I would think, what is that commonality between the people who end up building something? And it's never how smart they are. It's never how skilled they are on television. It's never that. It's the ones that like are the same way in the green room when no one's watching as they are on air. And they're not, none of them are the same. Some are crazy and wild, and some are totally like, whoa. And some are really kind, but the ones that have that congruency, that show up on air and sell their product, whatever it is, whether it's a Dyson vacuum or a personal growth, whatever it is, they're the same, right? Because guess what? The people watching are able to connect because you can't fake authenticity. And I feel like learning that is freedom, because it is so stressful when you feel like you need to show up on social media as something that you're not, because you're trying to build a following and get more likes, or you're showing up in the dating world and you're as your representative, because whatever, it is so stressful. But like, when you realize being authentic it's the most freeing thing, because you now no longer care if something's working for a competitor in your industry or this or that, because it doesn't matter unless it's truly authentic to who you are. And one quick thing is, like, I used to we built to over 1,000 employees. So I went from not paying myself for 3 years to over 1,000 employees, and they would get so sick of me saying this, but I feel like it was one of the keys to our success. Was they would tell me something a competitor was doing or a new product launch or whatever, and I would say, listen, our biggest threat to our business is not what the competition's doing. It's the risk of us getting distracted by it and like getting tempted to dilute our own authentic secret sauce. That's it. And it was kind of like staying true to that helped us actually build something that mattered. And listening to that, even sometimes when the experts out there, or in my case, the retailers, were telling me they didn't believe in it. And one more quick thing is just in this process, because you mentioned, the people around you, if they're doubting you, right? Another big tool just to share with everyone listening that helped me is just everybody around you in your circle, whether it's friends, a partner, people you work with, whoever. They're only capable of believing in your dream, whether they realize it or not. They're only capable of really believing in it, usually, if like their own lens they're seeing it through of life experience and limitations has already proven to them it will be successful, right? Like, so many people, even experts or visionaries, like, they would never admit this, but like, if you're doing something new or novel, or maybe it's been done a million times, but you're doing it your own way, it's really hard for anyone else to ever think it's going to be successful, because they've never seen it be successful before, because it's never been done the way you're going to do it. So keeping that in mind, and Jim, I would have this imaginary volume dial, and everyone listening has this. Okay, imagine you have your control over your own volume dial. I think one of the biggest keys to overcoming self-doubt on your own journey, whether it's to start painting again, or to start writing that book, or to just freaking go online and make an online dating profile and put yourself out there, right? I think like one of the biggest keys is learning how to control your own volume dial with who you let speak into your life about what. And what I learned, and again, I share a million things I did wrong in this book too.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.